Hello, world. This is Hello Chaos, the podcast about the ups and downs, ins and outs, highlights and low points of entrepreneurship. I am one of your hosts, Jennifer Oladipo.
And I'm Jennifer Sutton. That's Jeno.
Jeno, to keep us straight.
And I'm just Jen. No nickname yet. We're on that journey. And today we've got I'm excited to hear about this one. But we've got Andy and Jeff, and they are Mister and Mischief, or is it Michief?
Inquiring minds.
Ooh.
Maybe we need we'll workshop it.
We'll workshop it. So tell us a little bit, just give us the high level overview of Andy and Jeff, the partnership, the marriage, the CEO and COO. Tell us about
we should probably figure out which one is which.
Yeah, that's right.
Do you
Co-founders.
Co-founders. Okay. Tell us about Mister and Mischief.
Well, here's a big shock. We're married. We're gonna get the scandal right off the bat.
You heard it here, folks.
Okay.
Full disclosure. And I always like to say, we've been collaborating on all sorts of things, since we met, a relationship, a marriage, a house.
You collaborated on that?
Yeah, we
Okay.
That's what the kids are calling it these days, collaborating. So we've been collaborating since, we met. And then and helping each other out creatively on all sorts of projects. So we're both creative folks from film, television, and theater. And so in our different projects, we would help each other out and collaborate in that way. And then something happened in 2017.
Yeah, I think at the end of 2017, we were talking, and I had come up with an idea that I was sort of, as a joke with a friend, about will someone give us money to make Waiting for Godot into an escape room. And when I told Andy, she said, that's hilarious, we have to do that. And I think a couple of weeks later, we looked up and saw that the Hollywood Fringe Festival was happening in June. And so we said, hey, that's exactly what a Fringe Festival is for, is a weird idea.
Bad idea.
That's partly a joke.
There are never bad ideas.
A weird, ridiculous idea that we found so hilarious, but we were like, is anyone else going to find this idea hilarious? So we're like, just one day. We're just going to do it for one day.
Yeah.
Because we have a kid. This is ridiculous. Why are we putting on a show? But I was obsessed with it the second you told me about it. I was like,
and then it slowly, as we were developing it, it was really fun. We had a great time casting it, writing it, building it.
I should say, we put it on, this is a fun fact, the pop-up video fun fact, is we signed up for Fringe before we had written it.
Yes.
And then we sold out before we had finished it.
Oh, wow.
Oh my goodness. That's fantastic.
Yeah. So did you just ask people
yeah, Jeff has a big copy.
We have to qualify that because if you're not familiar with escape rooms, we do limit the amount of people in the audience. So in the case of that show, only 8 people per audience. So,
but we ran it 1 million times.
Yeah, so there weren't a lot of tickets to begin.
Well, I like Andy's version. Sold out.
And Andy's story is much better. It's sold out before.
But also, we could only show 8 people at a time, but I don't know how many shows we did that day,
7.
Oh, that's it? So this ridiculous idea. No Proscenium, who's this blog about immersive theater and weird stuff, tweeted about it, and we sold out instantly. And then we were like, oh, now it's real. Now it's happening. People want to come to this. So we made it.
We made it. We had a great run at Fringe, and then we went on to produce. It went to a festival here in LA called Indiecade, which is for mostly for games, but really anything interactive. Anything interactive. And so in this case, we're like, oh, great, a live game, theater, theatrical experience. We got into that. We also ran for a day, and then we produced our own run of Escape from Gato in 2019, I guess it was, the beginning of 2019.
And we sort of basically have been doing these pop-up versions of this inside joke. This inside joke changed both of our careers, because what ended up happening is this thing we loved ended up being a thing that lots of people loved.
Yeah.
It was a really successful artistically, financially it is not, it's a very low throughput. But because it's so weird, because people get, it became, and has such low throughput, it became kind of this urban legend. So we would kind of pop up and they'd be like, did you know that there's a Samuel Beckett? Like, we got a mention in the New York Times of just like all the strange things that are happening in theater. They're like, there's even a Samuel Beckett escape room, whatever that could be. It's like, we got so weird. And so this little thing that was an inside joke for one day ended up changing the course of our careers, because the right people loved it and saw it, and really we became a company and have been creating weird stuff that we think only we like, and it turns out other people like too.
So when,
since then.
So when did you realize that, okay, this could actually be a business? Was it the people who... What was that?
She's like, has that happened yet?
Is it a business?
It sounds like it. I don't know. There are sales, there's input, there's output. You said the right people got interested. So is that like producers and those sorts of people?
Investors?
Audience?
Okay.
Yeah, no, I think it's because there was an audience. We knew that there was demand for this type of weird, non-traditional, interactive, immersive theater. And I think it was like, all right, well, I think it became a business when we produced our own full run of it. We had to find a venue, get insurance, pay employees, pay our cast, build things, log things, all that kind of stuff.
That alarms the truth alarm, because Jeff is saying the truth.
That's it.
It's just like bells start ringing.
They start ringing.
But I would also say that it exposed us to, like, because we also both have independent, like, freelance careers, and we have worked together and then we have work apart. And then this has been a touchstone for us to talk about our work in other kinds of work. So we've become like, those people that you want to talk to Jeff and Andy. They made that weird Escape from Gato show. They'd be great to consult on this museum project or this theme park project that involves live interactive theater.
So Mister and Mischief, how did that come? Was that something that you guys, was that like a nickname among your group, or how did that name come about as the business?
Yeah, that was sort of like, we had to register for the Hollywood Fringe Festival, and we needed something to call ourselves.
Yeah, they were like, what's the production company? Yeah. And we were like, I don't know, we're married. And Mischief is at the core of everything we do, which is like, how can we play with this? We talk about with Gato specifically, but with really all of our work is like, how do you play with a play? Like, what do we do differently? How do we surprise you? How do we present you with something that you think you know what it is, but you don't? You're going to interact with it in a way that you're not expecting to.
Totally unexpected.
And that we're going to because theater mostly involves strangers coming together, how are we going to create some heartfelt shenanigans that are going to turn strangers into pals? Yeah, is sort of what we always talk about.
Yeah, well, I love it.
That's the Mischief.
The Mischief.
And then we're married, so Mister and Mischief. Yeah, it's like a play on it.
And then Michief.
Yeah, I think you should be that. That could be her title.
Totally, I got a promotion.
You're commander in chief of this.
But so one of the things that we focus on is, innovation and entrepreneurship, or innovative entrepreneurship. So I think one of the things that we try to do is kind of expand people's ideas about where innovation happens. And, it sounds to me like that's something that you're thinking a lot about in the theater space. Is you have to, by the nature of your business. So where do you find the opportunities to push things, or where do you, what kind of guides you to the new sort of innovations that you might do in your productions, or, in the space at large?
Right.
This is such a good question.
This is a
I'm
really
very
good
excited
question.
about it.
No, you're welcome.
Well, I think something what Andy said, which is like, what we sort of started with in terms of Escape from Gato was how do you play with a play? I think that's sort of the core of how do you take something that is very passive, sitting in a dark room watching people on stage, and create something overwhelmingly interactive at every point, and something that I think both of us really appreciate about interactive theater and immersive theater in particular, and experiential entertainment, is when it starts from the moment you buy your ticket, all the way till the second you step back out onto the street. We try to do that as much as possible. But I think it's taking the theatrical experience that really affects people, be it watching a narrative unfold in front of you, knowing that there are people right there in front of you, but then being forced to be a part of that story in some way or another.
Not forced, invited.
Well,
strongly invited.
Well, but I think sure, forced may be a little aggressive.
Somewhere between forced and
but right, a lot of the point of our work is this show doesn't exist if there's no one in the theater. For our work, there can't be a show.
If the audience, and we sometimes refer to them as guests or participants because audience seems very passive, but and they really are collaborators. They are the last cast members to add to the show. There's only so much we can rehearse, and then at some point we're like, we can't rehearse this anymore because we're missing half the cast, which is the people to watch the show.
Absolutely.
And so it like turns the volume up on what live means, because we keep bringing back to Gato because it's like the sort of origin story, but it is in all of our work, which is and Jen O, now that if I can use your nickname that we just learned, experienced with our show Objectivity. Literally, if nobody does anything, people will just be sitting staring at each other in a Zoom, and a lady will just sort of talk every once in a while. But if no one speaks back, there is no show. That was our Zoom interactive show. So it requires audience participation. We try to scale it so that if you are if you're shy or you're an introvert and you just want to observe, that there's a bare minimum of participation. You never have to pretend to be somebody else. It's not about like putting on a pirate hat and
improv or something.
And actually, both of us come from an improv background, but I almost never use that word anymore because I think the word is more, I tend to use the word unscripted or because I think it has less baggage. But that's great. But we're talking about innovation.
I would love to hear just a little bit more about that ticketing that you mentioned. So how do you bring some joy or anything to the ticket experience?
It's about the moment you buy the ticket and you've started to interact with the performance in some way, being that for Objectivity was a Zoom show that we did at what we know now as the beginning of the pandemic.
I thought it was maybe the middle or the end. We were wrong.
And it's sort of there's a blurry line as to what is the show. The show is a webinar, so you are buying a ticket for a webinar. And at that moment where you bought your ticket, you are going through the Warehouse Theater in South Carolina to buy your ticket to a show that they are producing. But when you get the response back is you have a ticket to the webinar of Objectivity. And so from there, you're already starting to introduce the character, in this case, Mary Del Campo, what you are going to be learning about, what you are doing, and you need to bring an object and all that. So it's all being done. You've now taken one step into the world of the show.
And to be clear, the first information is hi, this is Objectivity. It is a fake webinar about a fake expert that is about the real subject of decluttering. So we say it's a fake webinar about a fake expert about a real subject, and it will be participatory and on Zoom. after you've bought your ticket and you've got that information, like, this is a show. It is not that she is an actor. After that, we're like, Mary's very excited to see you. She really feels like she has a lot to talk for you. So sort of the communication becomes in character, not in a creepy way, but in a way that's giving everybody every opportunity to play. We're never going to just start a show and be like, all right, we're going to start a show. You, tell me your deepest, darkest secret. Hey, you, get up on stage and do a dance. Like, we're really, the audience care is embedded into the entire experience. It's integrated.
Are you seeing that you guys are leading that charge? Is there, others that are now or following suit that they've seen your stuff and it's, you got copycats, or are you going, no, we're
I wish.
Oh my gosh, I wish we were so cool that we had copycats. I mean, I think it's more that it's a community that shares learnings, and we've learned from shows both that we've loved and not non-loved of what we want to do better.
Different, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people try to talk about, like, Catherine, you talked about in that article, the sacred circle,
the magic
circle of, like, at Disneyland, they have that arch that says, like, you are now entering the world of, I should really know this, of fantasy and tomorrow and churros or whatever it says.
Tomorrow and churros.
I should say churros because that's what I'm thinking
about. There's a threshold. There's an entrance portal.
And we try to do that theatrically using the tools of theater. So, like, what is our entranceway into that says, like, okay, everybody, now we're entering this new world. So, with something like Gatto, I personally met everybody on the street with a clipboard and was like, hey, everybody, you're going to watch a game and play a show at the same time. Here's what you need to know. Don't touch the actors. Don't go up on the stage. You are going to have to do some things, but
sign this waiver.
So don't sue us. The bathrooms are over here, and that is out of the world, right? And then we have a separate character who plays an usher that comes out to get them ready for their seats, who says, hey, everybody, welcome to the show, and then gives the stakes of the show. And then she says, hey, just so you know, the stage manager just quit, so things are a little chaotic. We're going to need your help. Here's how you help. So we're transitioning. That's like our human portal into the world.
Gotcha.
So literally from the street where I'm like, you're about to play a game, to an in-character person that's kind of welcoming them in. And then the show starts, as opposed to just like, here's your ticket, figure it out.
Wall signage and things like that.
So if you guys, you guys have been doing this now for what, 3, 4, 5 years?
5 years.
5 years?
4 or 5 years. Yeah.
So where do you see the business now that it's, you guys have transitioned into to your careers into this? Where are you going to take it? Where are you going with it?
That's a great question.
Are we going to workshop it? Is that where?
Yeah, can we
workshop right here?
Do you have any of those? I really like a big Post-it, like a wall-sized Post-it that you can write things on. Do you have that? We are actually talking a lot about this right now because I feel like we're at a turning point where both of us are getting large-scale work as independent contractors, and Jeff's working for a large company right now, and I've been working for some larger companies as just Jeff and Andy, not as Mister and Mischief, just as freelance creative consultants. They're like, oh, the person that did these pieces, like, we're interested in their brains. We are about
Mister and Mischief sort of what we've talked about is that Mister and Mischief is going to sort of stay as our personal artistic practice. And that being said, it continues to grow and build. A couple months ago, we were a part of the La Jolla Playhouses Without Walls Festival, which is a very large 4-day festival in San Diego that's all immersive and interactive and experimental theater work. And that's really good. La Jolla Playhouse is a very well-known, theater in the country. And so that, that's the next sort of level. And similar to what we did a couple of years ago, that was sort of the one weekend we did the show, and likely we will. The show we did there was called 40 Watts from Nowhere, and it was about a pirate radio station in the 90s here in Los Angeles. True story. So then, likely the next step is we will produce our own run of that again. But again, so one weekend it'll be a little longer because we know there's an audience and we have people on our own email list. And likely, I think that's what will continue. We'll continue to develop work that is our own or that's meaningful to us, and sort of keep a grip on that creative control, which could easily, if we were to get involved with, your Netflixes and Amazon doing, activations, live activations for shows and premieres and all that. There's a huge market out there for that.
Right.
That we are sort of adjacent to.
Should we define live active immersion activations? Because we talk about it all the time, and sometimes I realize maybe listeners don't know so much.
Yeah.
So there's an entire field of basically where interactive theater and commercials blorp together. So if you see like influencers going through, a Stranger Things experience where they get to, meet a Gorgonzola. What's the monster called?
Demogorgon.
The Demogorgon.
Got it.
This is when Jeff and I get into a fight off the air. So they meet a Gorgonzola, and they get a picture with it, and they have an incredible, they're actors.
Yeah, they go on an adventure.
Yeah.
They take a million pictures, and they create basically like this live, immersive, interactive commercial for a TV series that people love. That is a huge, awesome, totally viable market. Yep. We sort of made a conscious decision that we want Mister and Mischief to be going more in the directions of the Warehouse Theater, La Jolla Playhouse, Under the Radar Festival, theater, artsy fartsy experimental universe. And, or people will approach companies like us to do like an immersive birthday party where we want to all be at the steampunk Gatsby party. Laugh,
but it's true.
And that's less what we're up to as Mister and Mischief. But if someone was like, "Hey Jeff, I want you to Jeff, not Mister, I want you to produce an immersive steampunk Gatsby Alice in Wonderland combination, and I'm going to pay you a lot of money. How do you feel about this offer?"
Sure, why not?
So how did you
I got news for you. I have an email for you.
How did you make the decision? What were you calculating when you said, you know what, there is this big commercial opportunity, but we want to stay more in the creative community?
Yeah.
I think it's a snowball. Like there's absolutely a world in which it is a conscious decision, because really it's like the work that I do, sort of the day job side of things and themed entertainment, there's a lot of stuff like that is, IP related attractions or marketing activations, stuff like that. And the knowledge of that world is basically like, yeah, if you want to do it, you could do it. And there's a lot of opportunity out there. And there's so much to do. There's so many opportunities that we could probably just get going, and it would consume us. And then it would also dilute sort of the joy and the fun and the creativity that is what I think the fuel of what Mister and Mischief really relies on. And so we'd be burning that up for someone else. And I think the conscious decision was, look, it's going to be a side hustle, but it's going to be a side hustle that takes a lot of effort and energy. And the product at the end of it, the shows that we create, are always, I think we decided, are always going to be more fulfilling.
And it fuels, it also, like, I would say that it ends up teaching us lessons that we learn in our freelance work all the time. Absolutely. Like it's our test kitchen, but a little more public than that. But it's our playground, it's our heart and our soul, and and we have because we've been together a billion years, a shorthand like none other, that we can talk about the kind of work we want to create, and then bring in people to support that vision. And then if we get an offer to work for, a large scale theme park installation, we can bring the knowledge that we learned from working with these incredible actors that we work and help them create their vision and keep it separate-ish. The knowledge comes with us. It's just the company is its own thing.
So as you guys have experienced this journey, and I love the fact that you guys had that definition and really are trying to have a passion to paycheck, but at the same time, it's you're really kind of defining, these boundaries to keep the passion and the creativity alive. So I love that. Have there been any what we call ahas or oh shit moments that you've experienced as you guys have had these little plateaus or these moments?
This is easy. Aha moments is how exponentially important, as Andy mentioned earlier, play testing with audiences is. And making sure. And so on one side, there's the fear, frustration, anxiety of, for lack of a better term, like burning, your audience, like going out and inviting, I don't know, we'll invite 40 or 50 people to come play our shows, the week before we're premiering them. And that's friends and family and, people that are on our newsletter. And that essentially burns them, right? Then they are not going to buy a ticket. They're not going to come see it. Some of them do. But they may not buy a ticket, and they're not going to see the show finished. They're going to get some of the pieces that are still being worked out, stuff that might change dramatically.
There was, in our last show, up until the very last second, there's a really important prop, the transmitter in the show that is about a radio station, and if the transmitter is working, for a long time was a cardboard box with a Post-it note that said transmitter works, and then I would switch it out like transmitter doesn't work, and then sneak out of the show for many places.
So they're going to see all that, but in the grand scheme of things, like the knowledge you get from just pumping people through and then talking to them afterwards and getting their feedback. And just hearing first of all, you can see what's working and what's not working. So we're furiously taking notes.
Right.
I'm obsessed with tracking the data, mostly of timing. Like if things are happening around the same time, you go, okay, the show is operating as designed. Like for us, the show is a designed object kind of thing.
Well, I would say you love tracking the data of time and success of if it takes them 400 years to open this lock, we're we got to figure that out. And also we both love tracking the social data of okay, a parent and child combination is playing. Okay, what does it do when there's a 13-year-old playing who's never used a CD player before? What is it? And then what does it do when it's a room full of cis-head, white, older dudes and then a young lady of color by herself? What does that do to the dynamic of the room? That data is also really interesting because we want to design how can we keep, as we like to call them, the bossy bears happy, but also give opportunities to the shy campers? How do we, when do people feel like they're going to be strong and wrong, and there's going to always be somebody that's I know how to do this, and they are never correct.
Have you created names for all these?
I like the bossy
these groups
bears and the shy campers.
We have so many. Shy camper, which I have to give credit to one of our collaborators, Sarah Parga, came up with that term. Shy campers, bossy bears, strong and wrong. And we have a term called. We also have a category called Hat Raptor, which came from Engato. Some people were just obsessed with taking the actors' hats, and they would just become obsessed with one prop. And they would just prowling around looking for hats. We were there's a whole show happening. Why do you need a hat? So we would call those Hat Raptors. But that's social data mixed with just hard time data. Technical data.
Does show you a portrait of how the show is working and how people are interacting with it, and then it becomes then the fork is that the desired outcome? Is it a non-desired outcome, but is it wrong? Like, right? There's something that we have chosen to do and we want to happen, but if everyone truly is interacting in one specific way, you go, okay, well, that's the desired path that people want to use.
Or what can, and if it isn't, like, what is the opportunity we can build in? Like, so we try to build one moment in every show, at least, where it's like, if this shy camper does nothing else the whole show, that they're going to get a hero moment.
Yeah.
So in 40 Watts, spoilers, we can spoil a little bit of them. For the shy camper. Can I spoil it?
You already, you
I
were
just
on?
did.
Yeah.
Literally, if someone does nothing else the whole show and they just kick back and watch the action happen, there's a moment at the end where there's a sign off and everyone has one piece of it. So if the shy camper does nothing else but say into a microphone, "Good night, everybody," then they've had this here. They have the last line of the show. It's 2 words. They've spoken into a microphone, which might be the most scary thing in their whole life. Yep. To some people that's a bungee jump. And so we want to give those people those opportunities and create space for them so that the bossy bears don't go like, "Oh, I can do this." Like, it literally is like, no, it has to be this person. Yeah. This is the person that's going to do this one part.
Gotcha. So this was,
and then they usually end up supporting them.
Oh. So this was one of the things that I was curious about, or leads into one of the things that I was curious about, is okay, now it seems like all of a sudden everyone's like talking about immersive experiences, but it's this
and experiential, you know, activations and all.
Yeah. And a lot of that conversation though has been sparked by this, Web3 Metaverse kind of thing. So I'm just really curious about how that plays into what you do. Is that something that you would move into? Are you kind of in your own lane? Do you have biters coming up, kind of trying to take this kind of thing onto the web? And I can't imagine it working, but that's my limits of my own imagination right now.
Well, I feel like that's fair. I don't know, Jeff, I feel like...
Well, yeah. I mean, I will say first, we are not necessarily pursuing any of the like VR metaverse kind of stuff. However, there is quite a bit of chatter and opportunity and prototyping of interactive theater in VR. I think probably most notably is Tender Claws production company, video game company, produced a show called The Under Presents. And then they had live actors in VR. And then a couple of years ago, they did a whole production of The Tempest in VR. That was really, really well received.
And I think the thing that they did is that the audience had some agency and were a part of it. And it wasn't just like, I'm going to put on a headset and watch The Tempest. Like, no, thank you. But putting on the headset and being part of The Tempest, and as I think with both Under Presents and The Tempest, it was very much like the guests were collaborators in creating this piece.
Okay.
Yeah. It is not something that is specifically like anything Web3 and Metaverse related. We are not pursuing I think we love the live experience, being out and about together. Getting people to come together. We really love when strangers are all together in a room and are able to become friends and collaborators for, if only for this 1 hour that we've got them together. That's great. But, I think we've had people come together and stay friends. And
we had some stories with Objectivity, which again was virtual but not digital, right? Like, I think there's a difference. It's like we met. It was a show. We like to think of it as like it's site-specific theater, but the site was Zoom.
Okay, okay, that makes sense. Yeah,
like no one, So it took place on Zoom because that's the set. We didn't pretend Zoom was something else.
Right.
But there's a lot of stories of people being vulnerable together and sharing stories from their lives, and then like got so many emails afterwards.
Yeah, they would take their experience, and it would be this sort of inciting incident. So the people would bring objects and they'd say, I got this candy bucket. when I was 12 years old, and it was from my buddy Trent. And then we would get emails a week later saying like, I decided to reach out to Trent, and we reconnected on Facebook. And
Aw.
I haven't talked to him in 20 years, and we talked about going out on Halloween together. We got a lot of stories like that where it would spark someone, or it was a loved one that had passed away, and they're like, you know what? I don't need this thing. I know what that memory is here now, and I don't need this thing. I've just been hanging on to it, and I've been able to process that.
Or there was one that was I've had this ashtray from my husband for years, and he passed away, and I'm keeping it, but it doesn't make me sad anymore. And we were like, oh my gosh, we were making a parody of self-help and all these people because they had these human connections. I don't think that can happen the same way in a space where you have a mask, essentially.
A little avatar or something.
Yeah.
And I think it's seeing, we prefer it live. But I think again, it's like the shy person on the microphone saying one line. It's like just being myself and being present with strangers might be the scariest thing in the world. And facing those fears and having it come out not just well, but like delightful. Because we don't tend to be like, we're going to do a sensual, dark reinterpretation of Pinocchio. Like that's not really our jam.
He's like, oh, no, no.
Oh wait, no, that exists, and actually it was really good. Oh, I'm sorry to Wood Dog Boyfish. That was a really good show. Wood Boy Dogfish. I love that show. That was actually really was like a sensual reinterpretation. That was good, really good. A dark, sensual reinterpretation of Paw Patrol.
I would pay for that one. I would totally sign up.
I would pay to not see that.
Yeah, we're past the Paw Patrol phase at our house, but it felt long. Yeah. Oh my gosh, we're out of time. Well, look, thank you so much. I know. It's way too good.
I'm fascinated by what you're doing.
We will not end on Paw Patrol.
No, we won't.
No, go ahead.
I was like the social experimentation, the fact that you guys are actually like getting, taking that data, both almost like quantitatively and qualitatively, and really, formulating and inventing new things.
Well, and I was thinking about like this is like the best model for customer.
That's what I was like
that I've ever.
So I'm a research designer, so I do focus groups. I'm like, oh my goodness, the social experiment and the testing and the interactions are just, they're fascinating.
And also just when you were talking about, as people go through the experience and then like, would you say you burn them, you kind of can't use them anymore.
Well, when you throw things at them and go, how what are they going to do with that?
Yeah.
What are they going to do with this? How are they? And then you guys have all created your own, I don't know if you remember back, if you guys have heard of Prism or Claritas data, which is, 244 groups of people. It's like birds of a feather flock together who, so that's like the American country boy, or the red, white, and blues. And, so the fact that you guys have kind of created your own.
I don't know what you're talking about, and I'm fascinated.
Oh, well.
Is it like that profile, customer profile kind of thing?
They are, and they're based on, it's one of the oldest kind of profiles of American people, segmented down to the zip +4 areas. Wow. And go look at Prism, as in PRIZM, Claritas, if you're interested in that. But yeah, it is all these fun names, and like the front porch sitters.
That's awesome.
They've grouped these names, and now it's they've now inserted all like the millennials and the Z's, and it's like so you guys would love those names and how they've described them.
Is it disturbing? Is it problematic, or is it helpful? I can't figure this out.
It
seems amazing.
It is. So it's very helpful from somebody that looks at I would say geographic and consumer data, because it also has like their media profiles. So that's what it's based on, of like, how are they consuming media? What are they consuming? What are the type of purchases? their usage of online versus, going, Main Street, storefront, brick and mortar. So it's all consumer behavior of their lifestyle and their purchasing, down to like the littlest of nuggets. And then they try to group these people together, if they create these little names. But yeah, it's like, so if I've got a client that's it's a financial institution, and we've profiled their best customers. We can take their data and run it against these like Prism profiles, and then you can do what they call brand category index brand indexing to category index, and go, where do these people live? Literally down to the zip +4.
We need to do that.
Yeah.
Like for Orange Web.
Yeah. So it's just fascinating data.
Yeah.
I mean, so you can compare it to go, this brand is really hot, but the category is not, or flip it of this category that's like banking is, everyone's buying home equity loans out the wazoo, but you have no presence. So it's just, it's old school, just using
it's feedback. It's some sort of like
it's data.
Feedback.
Yeah.
Like,
and you guys are doing it more in that qualitative kind of live space. This is taking secondary data and just, going deep.
Yeah, I really
but
love
I'm
that.
fascinated by it.
Well, and then because you get to build and continue to iterate, based on that. And it's just, I don't know. I really appreciate it. I did the Marie Kondo objectivity show. And so I know firsthand what the experience was, which is why I wanted to have you all on. And I actually did have, I let my thing go. I was like, yeah, I'll just grab this like thing I've had forever. And it was like a notebook, like all these notes that I was going to write someday. So it's like this beautiful box of notebook paper, but it wasn't the only one I had. I had like several, and I was like, this is the person I want to be, but I've had these for like years and years and years. I am not that person. And I let them go. They're gone. And I was just like, wow, that's weird, because it was just supposed to be something to do, on like a Saturday.
You guys are therapists.
A COVID Tuesday night or something.
You're social therapists.
Accidental
therapists.
I mean, if I may, there's one other story like that, which is someone who's become a close friend came to Escape from Gato. This was years ago, and told us like a couple weeks later, saying like, I had this, like, it was so challenging for me what was going on, and I had so much trouble because it's a little bit frenetic at times. It's very frenetic at times. Yeah,
it's created to give you an existential crisis.
And I don't remember exactly what happened.
There's a part where there's a very loud monologue that goes on for a very long time.
But he went to a doctor, and he found out that he has this auditory processing disorder that has been undiagnosed for his entire life. And now he had it diagnosed. He's like, my life has changed because I know about this. I know what's going to trigger it. I'm probably not giving it the right.
So they the experience let him know they had a health issue, is what you're saying.
Yeah, we didn't cause the health issue.
No.
To be clear,
no, let them know they had a pre-existing condition. Is that on the waiver?
Well, but by putting people in extraordinary but safe experiences, you learn all sorts of things. You learn, let me just tell you, if you want to learn about people, if you want to learn about a group of people, watch them solve puzzles together. You're going to be like, oh, you don't listen to your wife at all. Oh, no. Oh, no, she has the answer and you are not listening.
Yeah.
You see a group of work friends doing, there was a group that came as a work group I'll never forget. And like the first puzzle is finding your assigned seat is structured as a puzzle, and there was one woman who's just like, I sit where I want, and she just like sat down randomly. The show could not start. It was like 20 minutes of her just being like, nope.
Wow.
And everyone's like, you have a ticket that says where you're supposed to sit. She's like, I'm gonna sit wherever I want. That's why the show hasn't started yet.
Oh, wow.
And we were like, this work dynamic is fascinating.
That is.
Wow.
Accidental therapy. You guys are, personality
I know.
diagnostics.
There's so much there. So good.
I love it. Mister and Mischief.
Mister and Mischief. Well, thanks again so much. And where your website, misterandmischief.com, is where people can find more?
No.
Oh,
Dot fun.
you're like,
Dot fun.
Fun.
Yes, that's right.
oh,
It's
Mister and Mischief dot fun.
We were picking our domain
No,
name.
.com was taken, and
Weird.
You're like,
the only
how
other
dare
option-
they?
I mean, a lot of boring options were like .fun. Yeah, let's do it.
That's right. So misterandmischief.fun. And then to find this podcast and the rest of Hello Chaos.
You can find it on all your podcast platforms, your favorites, Spotify, to iTunes, Pandora, wherever you get your podcast. That's Hello Chaos Podcast. Or you can find it in our digital innovative zines that we've rolled out in 3 South Carolina markets. So you can also find it and watch the video. So if you don't want to just listen, you can come on, you can watch us. And that's gvlinnovates.com, Chaz, CHAS, innovates.com, or COLA for Columbia, colainnovates.com. Any of those zines, it is gated content, but it is free to consume. Just need your name and email.
Just a little name.
Just a little name.
Email.
Yeah, but accessible content
Yeah.
for all.
Everyone else has it.
Right. Well, thank you so
Thank
much.
you,
We look forward to
guys.
keeping tabs on what's coming next with you all. Thanks again.
Absolutely. Thank you.
It was a blast.